Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to talk about Commander, tough rules, and cool interactions, episode 57. Today's episode is going to cover something that I've seen come up in many games of Commander lately, and it's all the same thing, but I see it pop up because of two primary situations. Tokens have been a part of Magic since the very beginning. In the limited alpha set, we had a card called the Hive. Here it is with its original text, and we can see that it actually does say in its text that it creates a creature token that is a 1/1 artifact creature with flying, the details of which are kind of spread apart in the card. And then in Unglued, which is the very first ever unset in Magic, they released the very first official tokens for Magic, and they were great for games, and they were very open-ended as to what the token was. Here we can see what are clearly a zombie token and a goblin token, but they don't actually say that on the token, nor do they say the power and toughness on the token itself. Time travel a little bit, and this is what the token is for the Hive, which we didn't have before. And this is what the 10th edition version of the Hive looks like with some slightly more modern formatting and wording. We can see that the tokens are named Wasp, despite being an insect for its creature type. Typically, the token has a name that is based on the type that it has. So a 2/2 black zombie token made by Liliana Dreadhorde General, and the 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature token made by the upcoming Ashnod Flesh Mechanist will both be affected by a card like Echoing Truth that reads, return target non-land permanent and all other non-land permanents with the same name as that permanent to their owner's hands. They're both zombie token. Okay, now that's a lot of stuff, but let's get to the real main course for this episode. Recently in Magic, WotC has started to make cards that make token copies of things like creatures and other permanents. One of my favorite ones lately has been Irenicus's Vile Duplication, which says, create a token that is a copy of target creature you control, except the token has flying and it isn't legendary. Even more recently, in the Warhammer 40k decks, we got a new mechanic called Squad, and we can see it on a card like Vanguard Suppressor, which is a 3/2 flyer that has, whenever Vanguard Suppressor deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And the Squad mechanic reminder text for it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may pay 2 generic mana, any number of times. When this creature enters the battlefield, create that many tokens that are copies of it. So, what could be confusing about these copy tokens? For most players, they might be pretty straightforward, but every now and then, these two situations may come up. The most common type of situation, and the one that inspired me to make this video, is when we're dealing with a card like Austere Command, which says, choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. And we're going to be specifically looking at that third mode on it that destroys creatures with mana value 3 or less. Typically, when I see that spell cast, and then that mode picked, people end up scooping all of their creature tokens for them to die. But they end up scooping some that shouldn't be destroyed by the Austere Command. Yes, tokens like the zombie tokens made by Lily and the goblin tokens made by Krenko do have a mana value of 0 because they didn't have that value defined by the effect that created those tokens. But with token copies, this is different. Some players just believe that all tokens have a mana value of 0, but when dealing with token copies, they do have a mana value, and that is the same mana value and same mana cost as the thing that they've copied. So in this case, Austere Command would not destroy the Squad tokens of Vanguard Suppressor, as those tokens have a mana value of 4. I'm adding this audio in after initially working on the video because when I was working on finding the token image for the token for Vanguard Suppressor, I completely forgot that the actual token itself doesn't even show that it does have a mana value or a mana cost reflecting the original card. And that was one of the main factors leading to confusion in the game that I was in. One other case in which this comes up is with Devotion. If you have out a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, and use its mana ability to choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. Then you will want to make sure to include your token copies of things like Vanguard Suppressor, or if you've made a token copy of your commander via a card like Irenicus's Vile Duplication. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about these crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta. And for those of you who are still sticking around, what are some other kind of things about tokens that you have some questions about? I've got a few other ideas for tokens, but this one kind of takes a more common thing that I'm used to seeing with people having issues in games, is that token copies do have certain copyable values that we're not used to thinking about. So let me know if you want to leave some comments down below with any other questions you have about tokens. Thanks. Ta-ta.